Welcome to Bridge Watch. I'm Corey Ranslem with Dryad Global. So this week on the vlog, we are going to talk about the complete elimination and destruction and sunsetting of paper charts with Erik from BlueWater. We talked a little bit about it last month on our Flips preview, and now this month we are going to dive into this subject. Hey, thanks for taking the time, Erik. So we're talking today about the complete and utter destruction and elimination of paper charts, right? This is it. We're blowing this up and we're going all digital.
Let's not go that far. Paper charts aren't going anywhere today, folks. They're still going to be here for the time being.
We've just made the whole entire maritime world just panic instantaneously.
It is true that over time the plan is to sort of phase out the traditional way of producing, paper charts. But certainly there'll be paper charts around for the foreseeable future.
Sure.
2026 is the deadline that the UKHO has set down. 2025 for NOAA, our local hydrographic office. But there's some interesting, more information on exactly how that's going to work. And as of right now, we'll be able to provide paper for at least the next couple of years. So don't panic, folks.
Okay, so let's kind of dive into this. As Erik said, there's two major hydrographic offices that cover the world. There's a number of other hydrographic offices that provide paper charts local to their countries, but the two biggest are the UKHO, the United Kingdom's Hydrographic Office, and NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration here in the United States. So let's just kind of separate and dive into them. So let's first start, since we're here in the U.S., with NOAA. What is happening with NOAA as far as the sunsetting of the paper charts, and what have they put out? What does the program look like? And, what do the mariners need to know about this?
Sure. So NOAA actually, this isn't new information. Back in November of 2017, they kind of came up with this plan and said, we're going to eventually sunset our raster database, which is what they use to provide paper charts, also raster digital charts for ecdysis. They really came back in November of 2019, so 2 years later, they put a whole white paper out there. We're going to link to that in the description, but really gave us kind of the playbook of how they see this working. The important dates here are for NOAA, November to January 2025 is when they are hopefully going to be done sunsetting all the charts. That's their plan, but that has started now. So they've already phased out some NOAA paper charts. The first one was Lake Tahoe, areas that aren't sold a lot or produced a lot. They're going to purely ENC data. So again, the idea is...
And ENC, for people who may not know, is electronic navigation.
Right, electronic navigation chart. It's an official standard set out by the IHO, which is a part of the IMO, the International Hydrographic Office. So it's an international standard. So what NOAA is doing is they're saying, hey, we have to maintain two databases right now. We have to maintain a raster database and we have to maintain a vector database with virtually the same information. From a manpower standpoint, they'd like to consolidate this into one database, and it's a vector database. So the plan...
But it's the same data that's available in both databases. It's just how the data is stored and presented is what's a little different.
Exactly, right? So the raster database, it's kind of one flat layer, and in the vector database, it's a bunch of different layers. So you've got your depths, you've got then maybe the land masses, you've got another layer that's going to have kind of the notes on the chart, there's a cable here or something. So it's certainly all the same data, and it'll both be represented in a very similar visual fashion. So the good news is, at least with NOAA, we're going to be able to produce paper charts based on that vector data. That's also going to allow...
So then realistically with NOAA, the paper charts aren't going away. They're just consolidating the databases, and now you have the option to be able to say, with the clients, okay, we need a printed chart of this particular area, and you'll be able to do that.
Yeah, exactly, and it's going to give us some really cool opportunities to produce charts that didn't exist before. So we'll be able to set the scale and sort of drag a box over an area and set the scale there so that you can get a custom chart and a custom scale. So we get this question all the time, hey, I'd like a chart that goes from Key Largo to Key West and it covers this far out to sea. Well, that doesn't exist in the standard NOAA catalog right now, but it's something that we could make on demand for a customer.
Okay, so that's actually going to be a really cool change that you'll be able to kind of customize based on where your operation is. So if you do need paper charts, it should help potentially reduce costs, because you may have to eliminate, instead of saying, oh, I need to buy 10 charts, I can make this into 3, 4, 5 charts.
Absolutely. And to kind of put this into perspective, NOAA has roughly 1,000 paper charts right now, and they have roughly 1,200 ENCs. By the end of this process, NOAA will have no more paper chart raster data, but they'll have 9,000 ENCs.
Okay.
So they're going to standardize the cells and make it into a really nice grid with a naming convention that's understood, hopefully, by us. We'll probably still have to do some research, but
Sure.
It's supposed to be a little bit more straightforward than the current system.
Okay, so that covers NOAA. Let's talk about really the largest hydrographic office in the world, and that's the United Kingdom's Hydrographic Office, or the UKHO. They produce a ton of charts that have worldwide coverage, big implications here from a paper perspective. What does it look like as far as what the UKHO is doing, a little different than what NOAA is doing when it comes to sunsetting the paper charts?
Sure. So overall, we have a little less information. Their announcement was far more recent. Again, NOAA started this process, at least announcing it back in 2017. They put out some more information in 2019. The UKHO has just told us that this year, in 2022, that this is going to be the process. Their date is sometime in 2026. We're thinking it's going to be towards the end of 2026. However, we know that they're already starting to sunset paper charts, large-scale paper charts for areas that boats don't really go a lot. Okay. To put in perspective sort of the scale of these two organizations, like I said, NOAA's got 1,200 ENCs going to 9,000. The UKHO, as of today, you want to guess?
It's a lot.
Yeah, 18,206 ENCs
so
available.
It's a couple more than NOAA.
It's a few more extra cells. Right. It's important to understand that the United Kingdom sources data for their ENCs through other hydrographic offices, so they're kind of the big reseller to the world. For instance, if you're buying an ENC for Florida, where we are here, it's probably going to be NOAA data that the UKHO is repackaging. Right. So it's important to understand that these hydrographic offices, and there's one for most major countries in the world, are all kind of working together on this. The reason that the UKHO has come out and said that that they're going to sunset paper charts, and I think this is really important, they're currently showing about 85% of global demand for charting is digital right now.
Really? So right now, the UKHO has about an 85% global demand on just digital. The other 15 is paper. So it really makes sense from their perspective to say, okay, let's try to sunset 15% of what the business is, or convert these guys into electronic.
And certainly, we understand as producers of paper charts, as resellers, it's a huge logistical challenge. Yeah. I mean, we've got to get paper, we've got to get ink, we've then got to ship them around the world. Yep. There's a lot of money spent on just moving this data. Obviously, it's 2022. The internet works. We can kind of get this data to ships in a more real-time way. So, as someone that is really into cartography, we want to get the best data to the mariner. Long term, I really think this is going to be good for folks. They're going to have the most up-to-date data. Now, remember too that solar
eliminates sorry to interrupt, but it eliminates really the need for doing chart corrections on paper. And when you sometimes get that information and don't know how old it is, to the electronic point, it's an update of a certain area of a chart. It's a small data update that you could get, potentially weeks faster than what you could do when you look at chart correction if you're trying to maintain. I remember when I was in the Coast Guard, we would get chart correction data sometimes weeks after that data would be published.
Sure.
So it's tough to maintain that chart correcting database.
No, you're absolutely right, and I don't think we're going to get a lot of calls from first officers complaining that they don't have to do chart corrections this week. Remember that Solus has mandated that sort of the whole commercial fleet of the world move to ECDIS. So for a lot of these commercial ships, it's really not going to affect them. They might be carrying some paper as a backup, but long term, that's probably just going to phase out entirely. For some of our customers in the yachting sector, this has really big implications. A lot of our boats are not ECDIS mandated. They're not running full ECDISs, and they're relying on paper. Certainly for today, next year and the year after, we'll still be able to provide you paper for your plans, but it's something we really start needing to talk to our customers as, sort of a long-term plan. Like I said, this is somewhat new information from the UKHO, and we've heard rumors about different solutions, maybe for large yachts and a different mini ECDIS standard. Again, that's all kind of conjecture at this point. We don't really know, and I don't want to tell anybody that this is exactly what's going to happen. What I do know is long-term we'll be able to provide this data to our yachts in some sort of capacity. And again, it should be very corrected and up-to-date, and they won't have to worry about maintaining large paper folios.
Right. So with that, I guess a question that I have, and maybe you don't know the answer to this, is is the UKHO going to do something similar to the Coast Guard, where they're going to maintain the database, where you guys then would potentially be able to go in, like with the NOAA data, and print a chart for a particular area if someone does want a paper chart? Have they talked about doing that, or is there anything on that?
That's a great question. In some of the sort of public forum stuff that they did, that question was brought up. As of right now, the answer is no, they haven't said they would do that. But again, we're hopeful long term. We're thinking and, saying, kind of look at NOAA's plan. They've really put something together. I'm hoping they kind of look at how that's worked. Because certainly for us, we'd really like the ability to produce
Sure.
paper charts from that data. It'd be no extra work to the UKHO, so to speak, in terms of just making that data available to us in some form or another. So yeah, we're hopeful, but we don't know today if that's going to be possible. Time will tell.
So interesting, we will probably and most likely have an update video on this sometime in the future over the coming years. As this really develops, I know there's going to be a ton more information. It's really interesting to our clients. We're across the swath of maritime besides large yachts, the commercial fleet and the cruise ship fleet. So this is definitely an interesting topic. One last question I have for you. So let's take a look at, you mentioned, like Australia, Canada. I know that's one of the unique things I like about BlueWater is you guys work with a bunch of different hydrographic offices around the world. I know you do a lot with Cuba. You guys have contacts in different countries in Central and South America and can really provide paper charts with phenomenal data. Have you had any indication from any of these other hydrographic offices that they're looking to institute a similar plan to move from the paper to a bigger digital push? Yeah,
again, another great question. Officially, no, we haven't heard anything about that. Like I said, NOAA sort of announced this back in 2017. It really wasn't a large surprise to us that the UKHO took that path, so I wouldn't be surprised if we see countries like Canada, Norway, Australia with modern hydrographic offices doing that and kind of following suit. Some of the other places you mentioned, sort of like Cuba and some places in South America, I would bet that they're still going to maintain a paper chart database for a little longer, simply because they might not have the infrastructure to move to a fully digital system quite as quickly.
Awesome. Well, thanks for taking the time. I know this is an interesting subject to everyone, and we will most likely be doing more updates on this. Complete elimination and destruction of paper charts in the future.
Not complete elimination, no destruction, paper's still here. And yeah, Corey, we're definitely going to keep talking about this.
Hey, thanks for joining us on our weekly vlog today. We really appreciate all of our viewers. Make sure you connect to us through our social media detailed in the comments section below. Also, make sure you sign up on our website. We have a ton of free content when it comes to maritime security, threat assessments, and risk intelligence. Also, join the conversation. We want to hear from you as we improve our vlog and our topics each week. So make sure you connect to us and join the conversation.